making our little embroidery Christmas trees with the felt back and wood frame. I'm going to show you two methods of how to attach your beads in this video. Go ahead and check out the materials below and we'll get started. I just took out of my package my little tree and the felt that goes along with it. So you'll notice that the tree here, on one side it's going to look like wood, and on the other side it's going to look really smooth. So the first thing I'm going to do here is take this masking off, and a needle will help with that. You're just going to peel this masking off. It may come off in a few different pieces. And then underneath that masking, you'll see that there is nice, clean, bright wood. So that's going to be the surface. That is going to be the front of our tree. And then on the felt here, you'll see there's a clean side, and there's a side that might have some scorch marks on it from being cut with the laser. And that's perfectly normal. As the felt gets cut, it can get burned a little bit, but this is going to be the side that I cover up with the tree. And you're actually not going to see much of this felt at all, if any, because we're going to cover all of this with beads. And then on the back side here, you can leave this open, but you're going to have a lot of stitch marks back here. So I would recommend putting another backing on it. Any sort of embroidery backing, you're just going to cut it to the size and shape of the tree. Or of course you can put any other kind of fabric back there, just to cover up those marks, these stitch marks that we make. So I'm going to start here by putting a little color on my wood piece. You can use any sort of paint marker, you can use acrylic paint. I'm going to use just my green marker here. And just go in here and put some color on this. You can get really crazy with this if you want, but I'm just going to do an initial color, and then once I get all my beads on here, I can come back and I can add some detail so that it matches the beads. I don't want to go too crazy with this right now because I haven't put my beads on, so I don't really know exactly what it's going to look like when I'm done. But once I get this covered with the beads, I'll then be able to come back in and make the color of the tree here on the outside match whatever I've done on the inside. So I'm just going to add some color here, and I'll add some brown to the bottom. And you want to give this a minute to dry. So there, just one coat there of the green. And I have a brown. I haven't tried this brown yet, but this should be the brown that I want. I'm gonna come in here. Yep, perfect. And you can always go over this. So if you choose a color and you're not happy with it, you can always go over it once it dries. You just want to give it a little bit of time to dry. And if you go over a color, you may need to go over it more than once just to make sure that you're covering the first color really well. Now I'm going to take my felt here, and I want to put a little bit of glue on this just to hold it in place. So I'm going to take my tree, and just in a couple spots here, I'm going to add a little glue. My glue is actually a little bit dry, so I'm going to get some of this dry off the top here. Nice thing about the E6000 glue is that it holds well, but it's also really easy to peel it off of some surfaces. It'll just kind of crumble. So if you get it anywhere that you don't need it, you can just kind of peel that off. And I'm just going to line this up and press it down. And you can see I have some glue sort of oozing out the edge there. That's fine. I can always kind of peel that off if I don't want it there. So I'm going to give this a minute to dry before I start working with it and adding any beads. Now I'm ready to add beads to my tree. I have my 2 pieces attached, and I have a number of green seed beads. I'm using 11-ohs. And then I also have a number of 4mm beads, some pearls and crystals in some colors that will stand out and look nice against my green crystal or my green seed beads. So I'm going to start here on the top. I'm going to take my needle and just go through the felt so that I'm coming out at the peak. And I'm going to pull my thread through, but I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail here at the back. And I'm going to just hold on to that with my hand here so that it doesn't get pulled all the way through. I'm going to start by picking up some seed beads. And I want to pick up enough seed beads that I can take a row of seed beads here from the peak down to the bottom here, to the bottom edge of this little pie shape that I have here at the top. So I'm going to keep picking up these beads until I have enough to fill in that whole side of my little pie wedge. And then once I reach the other side here, I'm going to go down through this bottom right corner and pull that through. And so that will lay a row of seed beads from this top corner to this bottom right corner. Now on the back here, I'm going to tie my 2 ends together just so that this doesn't come out. I don't want my thread to come out, of course, as I work. So just tie those 2 ends together. So I have my right side done. I'm going to go over to the left side and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start here at the top, at the peak, and I'm going to fill in with seed beads till I get to the other corner. As you do this, you can, of course, fill it in with any color seed beads that you want, any of the greens, or you can get kind of crazy with it. You don't even have to use green. No one's going to tell you that your tree has to be green, but of course I'm going for a little bit more of a realistic look, so I'm going to do the green. So here I've got my second side filled in. And so now I have a nice little peak here of seed beads. I'm going to continue working here, and I'm going to continue adding V's until I get this filled in. I can go over just a little bit here in my felt, and I want to come out at the bottom of this little wedge over just a little bit here, just enough to give me room to add another row of beads. So I'm going to add another row of beads here, and then I'll add another row of beads on the other side, just like I did. I'm going to also lay these beads down in sort of a light to dark pattern. You can choose, of course, any pattern that you want. You can also just choose to make it solid color, but I like doing it with some sort of natural gradient to it with a little bit of that to make it look like it's a little bit more like a real tree here. Now, as you work, you can pick up some of your beads that you have to make the little ornaments. So here I'm going to lay the second row of seed beads down. One more bead here. And I'm just going to go up to where my new peak is, where I don't have any beads, and pull that. And you should see this starting to fill in nicely. So now I'm going to go to that new little peak that I created, go up through the top here. So now my thread is coming out at that new little peak where I don't have any beads. And I'm going to pick up some more seed beads. And now if you want to start adding your beads in here now, all you're going to do is just pick up your beads as you work. You can add them in here as you go, or you can also fill this in with your green and then come back in and add your little beads later. So really two different methods here. Neither one is right or wrong. Just kind of depends on what you want it to look like. You can try both methods and see what you like. I'm going to continue here adding my beads, and I'll show you what this looks like when I have the front, this top section filled in. I finished the top section here of my tree, and you can see I've only added these 3 beads, and I really need to add another bead here to kind of fill this in because I've got this bald patch on my tree here. So I'm going to show you the other way that you can add your ornaments. You can come up through your felts to the front side here, and then just pick up whatever bead you want to add. And you can see, oh, that one went rolling away. So we're going to grab this one here, the second one here. I'm going to grab that, let him fall down. And then this is a 4mm bead. So wherever my thread is coming out, I'm going to go to the side here. It doesn't really matter where, which direction you want to go, but I'm going to go to the side of that first hole that I made where my thread is coming out. I'm going to go to the side about 4mm, 3 or 4mm, however wide your bead is. And then I'll pull that through and just give that a pull. It'll sort of center your bead. And then your bead is going to sit on top of your seed beads instead of being part of that row of seed beads that you picked up. So 2 different methods. And it's going to bug me that there's 4 on here. I like things to be odd numbers, so I might add another 1 on here too, but that is that is going to bug me. I'm going to have to add a 5th one. But that's the 2 different ways that you can add beads. You can pick up your little ornament beads as you fill in with the seed beads, or you can also come back later and add them on top. I'm going to move on to the section down here, and I'm going to continue adding beads. Now here I'm not going to have a peak right away, so I'm going to add beads to either side, and then when I get to the center here, you'll start to see that you will have a little peak, and then I'll follow the same directions that I followed up here. So I'm going to work on this bottom a little bit, and I'll show you what that looks like when I get a little bit further on this one. I worked on both sides, the right and left side here of my tree until I got to the center. And now you can see I have a little, this little pie shape, this little triangle shape. And now I'm going to work this center triangle shape just like I did up here. So I'm going to continue here, going to the right and going to the left, back and forth until I have that filled in. Once you have the sections of your tree filled in, we're going to add some garland. So I'm starting down here at the bottom, and I want to take my needle and thread and go through my felt at an angle so that it's coming out sort of between the felt and the wood frame here. I have a little mix of silver and gold seed beads. You can, of course, use anything you want. I have 11 here. I'm going to pick up some seed beads, and you can make this sort of as long or short as you want. You probably want to start out with about 15 or so seed beads, just as a starting point to see what that looks like for you. And I'm going to pull this over my tree, and then when I get it to the length that I want, I can stop picking up seed beads. So I'll start right about here. So I want to hold it, or I want to lay it on my tree just like it's a piece of garland. And then I'll go through one of the seed beads, one of my green seed beads in my tree here, to hold that end in place. So there's my first little piece of garland. And I'm going to continue here picking up just rows of seed beads. And I like this little gold and silver mix. It gives it a little interest here. And I'm going to continue draping across my tree until I get to the other side. And you just want to drape this just like you would on your real tree at home. Or if you don't have a tree at home, the ones you see in other people's houses. So I want this to kind of hang. So I'm not going to pull this really tight. I'm just going to lay it where I want it. I'm going to drape it and then go through a seed bead on my tree. You can go through a seed bead, or you can wrap it around the thread that's going between the seed beads. A couple different techniques here. And you can see this is going to hang just like garland on a tree. So I'm going to continue here and just go back and forth until I get to the point where I think I've got enough garland. Once you have your garland on, you can come up to the top here. So you can see I started at the bottom, I worked my way up, and then at the very top, I just took my needle and thread and came from the back to the front here through that hole at the top of my tree. So there's lots of different ways that you can hang this, but I'm going to make just a simple little loop of seed beads. And then from there, I can attach a little ornament hanger, I can attach a ribbon, anything that I want to from there. So you're going to pick up a couple inches of seed beads, and you can measure that if you want or just eyeball it. I'm just picking up enough so that I can make a sizable loop here, just enough that I can, that's about 1 inch of seed beads. So if you pick up about 1 inch, you'll just make a nice little, a tiny little loop here. And that's probably about all I need. So I'm just going to pick up about 1 inch. You can make it bigger if you want. And then I'll go from the back to the front and come back through. And I'm going to go back through these seed beads again, just to reinforce this loop. And go through all the seed beads and back down the back and through the loop again. So from the back to the front, through that loop or through that hole there. And from here, I can tie it off. So this should be nice and tight. And I can take my needle and thread through a couple of these seed beads and just tie this off. The last thing that I need to do, if you haven't already, you might have already added some seed beads to your trunk. I didn't, so I'm going to go back down and take care of that. So once you have this loop cut off or tied off, there you go, there's my little tree. Very cute. The last thing that I have to do here is add some seed beads down by my trunk. So you can do really anything you want down here. You can fill it in with some brown or gold. I have some gold nearby, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with gold. And I'm just going to pick up a few seed beads here. About 4 is what I need. And I'm just going to go back and forth and fill this in. You really only, if you're using 11-ohs, you really should only need 2 rows of beads. And you're going to need about 4 seed beads to cover that section. So here you go. I've got that filled in with some seed beads. And I'm going to just tie this off on the back. And then I will be all set. So there is my adorable little Christmas tree. And this is one method, just filling it in with some seed beads, going top to bottom, very simple, and picking up some beads as you go for Christmas balls. And then of course, the next thing you can do is add that garland. So I hope you enjoy this method. and hang on, I'm going to show you one more method. The second method that I'm going to use to make a tree is I'm going to start the same way. I'm just going to color or paint my tree and glue the backing on. And then I have a variety of beads here. I don't have many seed beads, I just have some 15 O's. And then I have some pearls, some crystals, some check glass. I also have a little check glass cabochon. If you have something like this that doesn't have a hole in it, or some larger pieces, some more like statement pieces, I'm gonna go ahead and add those first. And I'm not exactly sure where I want it, but I'm just gonna pick some place where I think it might be nice to then kind of work around it. So for this, all I'm gonna do is glue it on. And I'll grab some glue here, put just a little dab of glue on the back. I'll put that right where I want it, and then just give that a minute to dry. I'm just going to be very careful with it here as I work. So I'm going to actually start with that piece because I want that to be my focal. So what I'm going to do here is just take my needle and thread and come from the back to the front. And then I want to think about what I want to put around this. I have some crystals here that I want to use, so I might start with doing some crystals around this. And if you saw the pumpkin embroidery video, this is pretty much the same. It's just using a different form and different beads. So this is more of a free form. We're just going to sort of add some beads around. So I'm just going to add those beads onto my thread and then go back down through the felt to the back. And now I like to go up. You're going to do sort of a back stitch on this, and I'm going to come up at the back of my crystal, and I'm going to go through my crystal again. And that little seed bead that I added at the end, I added one of these little 15 O's. I'm going to pick up another crystal and a 15 O. And then once that falls down to my project here, I'm just going to make sure that I hold that close so I don't see any thread in between. And then I'm going to go back down through my felt at the end of those beads that I just picked up. And that keeps the beads close together so I don't have the thread showing in between. And I can continue with this for these beads here. I'm going to come up through the felt at the back of the crystal and through that crystal and the 15O. With your little frame here, it might be a little bit difficult to get your needle up, so you can always use a pair of pliers to grip that needle for you, and that should help. And I'm going to pick up another crystal and a 15O and let that fall down to my project and curl this around my little cabochon that I added and go down through the felts. So here I'm just using a pretty basic sewing technique and just going around my cabochon here and using that back stitch. So that's one way that you can add the beads on. We can glue, we can use that back stitch method, and the other thing we can do here is simply come up through our felt wherever we want to add our bead and pick up our bead and then pick up a 15O for the end and let all those fall down. We're going to skip the 15O and just go through the bead and then back down through the felt and pull that tight. And so here we've just added one bead by itself. with a little 15 on top to hold that thread. And I can use this method for the whole piece if I want. And again, you can glue, you can use that back stitch, and you can also use this other method where you just come up through the bead, pick up a 15 and go back down. So all these different methods will work for you depending on what beads you're going to use. I have some crystals here. I like these crystals. You may want to just lay them out ahead of time to see where you want to put them. These are those ingots. Those are really fun. I have some little heart-shaped check glass that fits sort of really nicely up at the top there, so I might want to put that there. And in some other corners, you can just kind of play around and see where you want it. I do like keeping darker things together and lighter things together to have like a little gradient happening. I think that helps to make it look a little bit more realistic. So like adding some little punches of color there. We've got some pearls. So you can see I'm already starting to decide where I want to put things. You can have lots of fun with this. You can add loops of seed beads if you want to give it sort of a fluffy look. So just really there's no limits to what you can do. All you're going to do is pick up your beads and attach them to the felt in whatever sort of manner you want to use. So I'm going to continue here and work on this for a little bit, and I'll show you what I come up with. So you can see here that I've finished this tree, and I have some crystals in here. I have some pearls, my check glass hearts I ended up putting down here. So here's two different methods to work with your little tree form. Now on the back of this, you can paint it, you can cover it with cardboard, you can put an embroidery backing on it. You'll see in the pumpkin video how to put the backing on if you are interested in that. And you can do a corner or an edge here with the brook stitch. So check out that pumpkin video to see more about how to put the back on if you want to do a back like the with the embroidery backing. I hope you enjoy making yourself little trees. You can see here on the one that the second method here, I didn't really add any Christmas balls to it. I didn't add any colorful balls. I wanted it to look a little bit more like just like an evergreen tree, but you certainly can. You can then go in and add your garland if you want to, but I chose to leave it just green. Hope you have a lot of fun making these. You can also make them in beautiful pink colors, make a little pink tinsel tree, anything that you want. So hope you enjoy and have fun.